So David and his men wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. But David found strength in the Lord his God. 1 Samuel 34:6. From pity party to praise. A pity party is nothing to celebrate, but we have to admit we all have our share of them. They are unproductive, self-defeating, and faith-deflating. And they create a spiritual atmosphere that numbs us to the peace of God. When David and his warriors returned to their home in Ziklag, they discovered it ravaged and burned. Its inhabitants, including David's family, had been taken captive by the invading Amalekite army. The time was never more ripe for the grand pity party for the former shepherd boy. David's leadership was in question. He had been on the run from Saul for years and fled for shelter among the Philistines, Israel's traditional enemy. David's own soldiers were primed for mutiny and talked of stoning him. David wept, David mourned, David cried. But he turned his pity party around by finding strength in the Lord his God. While there are no scriptures that tell how David escaped the suffocating coils of self-pity, I think he must have thought on several things. I believe David must have reviewed his past. He thought about how God had worked in his life, keeping him from the many schemes and traps of Saul. David probably reflected upon the Lord, considering the intimacy of his personal relationship with Jehovah God and God's faithfulness through the years. Then I imagine that David must have remembered the promises of God, who had taken him from the sheepfold and declared his intent to establish David as king of Israel. I think David then found strength to go to God in prayer, making a request for God's guidance. We know that David inquired of the Lord, 1 Samuel 38, regarding the pursuit of the raiding party and found God's specific direction. David gave chase, discovered the camp of the enemy, defeated them, and recovered his family and goods. What God did for David, he will do for you. You do not have to wallow in the mere of self-pity any longer. You can choose to allow God to pull you out of the pit as you review God's past blessings. Reflect on the majesty and might of God. Remember the promises of God that apply to your particular situation. If you are fearful, find verses on fear. If you feel depressed, search out verses on God's comfort and presence. And then make big requests of God for future guidance and protection. The pity party will end. Praise will magnify the presence and power of God. You will find victory where there has been defeat, and perfect peace where there has been agony of soul. The choice is yours. Forgive me for feeling sorry for myself, Lord. That is a dead-end street. Change my perspective so that I may sense your presence and care. Lift me out of the pit and put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to you. Amen. When you are in the pit, God is at his pinnacle.